Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. It's Friday, the sun is shining, and it's almost the return of football. Newcastle will take on Aston Villa tomorrow at St James's Park, 5:30 kickoff. This is the match preview, so we will be talking about Newcastle United, Aston Villa. We will go through our team lineups and give my prediction at the end of the video as well, so be sure to let me know your lineups and predictions down in the comments below. We'll also go through what Eddie Howe said in his press conference earlier today. He was questioned on the changes coming to him and Jason Tindall to both be allowed in the technical area. He wasn't best pleased about that, and he was also quite honest in his hope to still bring in a player or two before the end of the window. So we will get into all of that, but first, be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button for the return of football. Loads of videos coming throughout the end of this summer window, as well as the start of this new season. And I did actually do a podcast on my Patreon earlier on today talking about Darren Eales' comments on BBC Radio Newcastle last night, which was a great listen, by the way. Well, the podcast is good too, but if you get a chance to go and listen to what Darren Eales said about transfers, tickets, and potential extension of the stadium, so be sure to go and check out that. But let's start off with Aston Villa, a side who really finished very strongly at the end of last season. Under Unai Emery, came in, really gave things a shake, ended up finishing in 7th place, got them Europa League Conference, so that's something that both Villa and Newcastle will be contending with next season, is also having a lot of games in Europe as well as the Premier League. But they have been backed this window. They've brought a few players in, including a target of Newcastle's not so long ago. Diaby has joined the squad, as well as Tillemans. It's been a good window. You know, add that along the sides of, a Watkins, who I think is potentially a threat for Newcastle this weekend. I mean, we saw what happened when we played Villa last season, the game where they really tore us a new one, to be honest. So we need to really watch out for them. I think one thing that, isn't good for Villa or Buendia, but is good for Newcastle, is that he has picked up an injury. Don't wish ill on anybody, and to be honest, they've got some players that can sit in his place and do just as good a job, but that is one less player for us to worry about. I think Villa are tipped by most to have a good season, as well as Newcastle are, so I think it will be a challenge. I'm much happier that we're playing them at St James's Park and not down at Villa Park. And for Newcastle, it is a tough start to the season. It's actually shown in this graph. Newcastle have the toughest 5 games of any team in the Premier League this season. Some people seen it as a chance to get some of the tough games out of the way. Some people seen it as a chance to, kick the season off with some tough games, and if we can get, a decent score and a decent points from those games, then we come into a nicer period of games. But whatever way you look at it, everyone's got to play everyone. It's all got to be done. Having said that, if we do start the season, on a low, it's harder to pick it back up again. But if we're going to start the season on a high against some of these teams like Villa, like Liverpool, like Manchester City, like Brighton, maybe we can really kick on quickly and get this season off to a good start. In terms of Newcastle, I think we're all excited to see some of the new signings potentially feature. We had a good window as well with Barnes, Tonali coming in. And I think there's been some standouts in pre-season. I think Gordon's looked great. I think Joe Linton's looked great. I think Elliot Anderson has looked fantastic as well. No one's really talking about Anderson, and I wouldn't imagine Anderson will start. He's not in my lineup. If that's incorrect, you tell me down in the comments. Miley as well. Some great players coming through as strength and depth in the squad. I still think we're waiting for Bruno to, kick into 5th gear, but he's just got his hair dyed blonde, and we know that normally helps him in the season. So good to see that, and I've no doubt he will be starting this weekend as well. And Eddie Howe did give some updates on injuries. He said that Joe Willock is still recovering from what ended up being quite a serious hamstring injury. So we wish him the best, and hopefully he can be back very, very soon. But he did say that Shaw as of now is available and will be in action for us this weekend, which is a big one. we've spoken quite a lot on, or I did a video literally yesterday talking about what positions would we like to try and strengthen before the end of the window. It was pretty unanimous among all of us, you guys in the comments, saying that centre-back was a position we should be looking at, because the moment Shaw does need a rest or does pick up an injury, you're looking at maybe a Lascelles or a Dummett, and, you know, not to be too harsh, but I think Shaw is a step ahead of them, and to have more depth in that, in particular, right-sided centre-back position would be pretty key. Which I think does bring us quite nicely onto transfers. Eddie Howe did his press conference this morning. He was asked a whole host of questions, and one of which was on transfers. He did not shy away in talking about the fact that he is still keen to try and bring something over the line before the end of this window. Darren Eales said last night to Sky Sports that he felt the same and that they were still actively working as a unit. Darren Eales, Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth on trying to get some moves done. I spoke about the fact yesterday that Tonali, Barnes, Livramento, I mean, it's looking pretty good. Eddie Howe spoke about the fact that Tonali is adapting well to the change of obviously moving over to England. He spoke about Livramento being quick, dynamic, but still taking a little bit of time to get full fitness. But yes, as I say, Eddie Howe said that he believes we are still working very hard to find a player, but that we may well have to be quite creative in order to make that happen. We've spoken about FFP and making payments over time. Eddie Howe spoke about that. He said that we may look at, you know, the option of payments over time, or even the possibility of bringing players in on loan, which I will honestly say I think isn't a bad idea. I think that the trouble is with loans is who's going to loan us a player. You know, we're looking at probably a small selection of teams, Man City, Chelsea, you know, teams that have maybe got an overflow of players who might loan them to us. Are they going to loan them to us? Is Chelsea going to allow us to, you know, go and use one of their players to try and beat them to a Champions League spot? I think loans, although I love the idea of a loan to bring a decent player in who's not maybe going to come in and immediately play, but give squad depth, give us that little bit more behind the scenes, which is what Eddie Howe said. He said he's looking at ideally at least one more player to just give us that squad depth. And to have that in a loan deal that costs us nothing, maybe a few wages, would be nice. But who's going to loan us a player? It's just tough. So instead, I think what we're looking at is down the route of payments over time, 5-year contracts that we can pay off. This is what we're doing with Livramento. It's what we're doing with Tonali. It's what we're doing with Barnes. Let's do it again. You know, a £30 million player over 5 years, we just pay $6 million now. You know, we take our time with the rest of it. So, yes, Eddie Howe not hiding and saying that we would need to be creative to bring a player in. So, hopefully, Dan Ashworth is right now being as creative as he can be to try and bring a new player or two in through the window. But Eddie Howe was also asked about the changes coming to the rule on the technical area. The fact that him and Jason Tindall are quite in sync in what they do on the touchline. It's always good fun for us to see both of them in action. Eddie Howe actually said to try and, I suppose, be as... he's not very confrontational, is he? He just wants to, you know, kind of get on with his day. He doesn't want to really raise it too far. He kind of said, you know, I think in terms of how many people are allowed in the technical area, it's probably always been a rule that you can't really be overflowing the technical area with everybody and their dog. He just said that really nobody's ever touched on it. Is it and Eddie Howe didn't say that, this is me now. Is it the fact that, Newcastle are doing quite good, maybe we should start enforcing that idea and enforcing that rule a little bit more than we have been previously? And it does look that way. Eddie Howe did say that it is a bit of a blow because of the way they work, but they will get round it and they will make sure that it works to the best they can. Maybe it'll be a rotation. Eddie Howe runs forward, goes back. Jason runs forward, goes back. Who knows? Tag team on the touchline for Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall. We'll have to see how they get on with that. But very excited for the game this weekend. And I will go into my lineups now, so be sure to let me know your lineups down in the comments below. Back five. Yeah, it's pretty much what you would expect it to be. Nick Pope in goal, Trippier, Shaw, I think will be back, Botman and Byrne. But Byrne is maybe the circled player, but look, that back four worked perfectly for us last season. I think it'll work again. Livramento, could he have played right or left back? From what Eddie Howe has said, he's still really adjusting probably to the squad. It's great to have him in, you know, over the last week for a bit of pre-season training, but not loads. He only played 2 games for Southampton at the end of last season because of his injury. I think he'll take a bit of time. And I think that's, as you can see by my lineup, a bit of a common theme across my team is that I do have one player in there, in Harvey Barnes out on the left-hand side, but I've not included Tonali. I have gone with Bruno, I have gone with Joe Linton, and I have gone with Longstaff. Now, you could argue that Anderson, Miley, Tonali is ahead of Longstaff, but I think Eddie Howe goes with what he knows, and I think Longstaff has had a slow start to the season. He was injured, he hasn't been involved in all the pre-season. What I look at is what happened in those friendly games. He had one game where he played Bruno, Joe Linton, Longstaff. He had the other game where he played Miley, Anderson, Tonali. If you had a chance to play Tonali with Bruno and Joe Linton for the first time ahead of the first Premier League game of the season, do you not think he would have done it then? Why didn't he do it then? I could be completely wrong. And I've got a bit mixed match with this side, actually, because I would like to see Tonali. I think everybody does. There's a £55 million player that we've brought in, and he's a fantastic talent. Why play Longstaff, who isn't quite there yet? Eddie Howe mentioned that Tonali is still adjusting, still adapting to the change of the squad and the pace. Unless he's trying to throw Aston Villa off, you know. But I think it could well be Longstaff in there. And then further up the field, I have gone with Miggy on the right-hand side. Great pre-season, got a few goals. I think Murphy definitely put his name in for a shout with the goal he scored in the pre-season. I've gone with Isak. I think it might be Wilson, though. Similar to what I've said about Longstaff, I think Eddie Howe likes Wilson. I think he trusts Wilson. You could argue that off the bench, Isak is the more impact player, and that starting Wilson would possibly be the better. To start Isak on with second half or 30 minutes to go, full of beans, get at them. On the left-hand side, I have gone with Barnes. I don't think he'll play Barnes either. I think for Barnes, scoring 2 goals in pre-season, he's going to add the numbers. I don't think it'll take the same amount of time for Barnes to embed as it would Tonali, because he's come to a different league. For Livramento, because he's just come back from injury, I think Barnes is ready to go, which is why I've included him and not the other 2. I think if he plays Barnes and not Gordon, that's really harsh. Because Gordon has had an amazing pre-season. He sat on the bench for half a season waiting for his chance. To play Barnes over Gordon, I think, would be harsh on Gordon. But it's a ruthless business, is picking these teams. And that's why I'm here to do it. No, that's why Eddie Howe's here to do it. I think he'll go Gordon. But, yeah, I've gone a bit mixed match, because I've gone with what Eddie Howe... I've gone with what I would like to do up front. But in the midfield, I've gone with what I think Eddie Howe will do in Longstaff. So, let me know your thoughts on that lineup down in the comments below. Let me know your lineups down below. Do you think that's what Eddie Howe will go with? What do you want versus Eddie Howe? You can tell me. And in terms of a prediction, I think I'll predict that it probably won't be as nice and sunny as this on a match day. I think it'll be raincoats and as it normally is. But hopefully not. Hopefully the sun's shining. I'm going to go with a win. You've got to back the win. First day of the season, St. James's Park. The atmosphere is going to be flying. 1-0. It was my lucky scoreline last year. It wasn't often right, but when I said it, it normally seemed to get us the win. I think if we can keep a clean sheet and start the defence the way we did last season, I know we started conceding a little bit more till the end of the season, but if we can get that defence solid, keep the ball out, get a goal, Barnes' debut goal, I'd love to see it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. As always, enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, enjoy your Saturday, enjoy the game if you go, and let me know, are you going to the game, have you got a ticket, are you one of the lucky few to get in there, will you be watching it on the TV? 5:30 kick-off, a few beers, and hopefully it'll be a good one. Thanks for watching guys. As I said, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you later.